In 1989, near the Pocono Mountains in Pennsylvania, 19-year-old Lori Auker left for work. She was never heard from again.
Liftoff of the 20...
It was NASA technology, a fly, and the family cat that helped solve her disappearance in a most unusual way. The Susquehanna Valley in central Pennsylvania is a quiet agricultural area. Lori Auker grew up here, not far from the mighty Susquehanna River.
Lori was a very sweet girl. She was a typical 19-year-old. She had a lot of goals and aspirations for her future as far as becoming a veterinarian, and had a great deal of interest in animals.
Just out of high school, Lori married Robert Auker. He was almost 10 years older and worked in a warehouse. Not long afterwards, the couple had a son, Matthew. Lori took a job at a local pet store to earn extra money. She shared her love of animals with her son Matthew at every opportunity.
When she wasn't working, she'd come in to show him, he particularly liked kittens, and she'd bring him in to show him the kittens, and he liked watching the fish, playing with the puppies. But she was a good mother.
Although Lori and Robert loved their child, problems between the two began to surface. The couple argued, and friends say they were unable to resolve their differences. Just 18 months after they were married, Lori and Robert separated. Lori and the baby moved in with her parents. Robert moved in with his and had visitation rights.
She wasn't happy with him because he had a very controlling type nature about him. She had to answer all his questions before she could go anywhere. He used physical discipline whenever he got upset with Matt, and that's what upset Lori.
While separated, Lori dated occasionally, but only casually. Lori's purse and keys were not in the car.
The disappearance frightened people. The thought that some young woman could go to a mall, a very busy mall, in broad daylight and suddenly disappear, presumably being abducted, really shot a shockwave of fear throughout that rather conservative, small area.
Police canvassed the area and questioned employees and shoppers in the mall, but no one saw anything suspicious. Almost from the start, police suspected Lori's estranged husband, Robert, may have had something to do with her disappearance. But Robert said he hadn't seen Lori at all that day, and he had an alibi. He said he was babysitting their son, went shopping, and then went to 2 scheduled appointments.
Mr. Auker told me that on the day of Lori Ann's disappearance that he had been over to Wise Markets to get a disability claim form. And he took that form to an office in Lewisburg, an orthopedic surgeon. And from there he went to the Bloomsburg Sears Mall and priced a dishwasher for his mother.
Police are now asking for the public's help.
For the next 3 weeks, police, family members, friends, and volunteers continued the search with no success. On June 12th, a woman jogging a few miles from the mall spotted something in an area known as Clody's Dump. it was little more than a skeleton. Investigators wondered whether this was the body of Laurie Auker and looked to forensic science for some way to tell.
The body was markedly decomposed in that only in the extremities was there any flesh left. There was no skin and no organs internally to work with.
Investigators needed to identify the skeleton found in the dump a few miles from the pet store. And they also wanted to know the cause of death. To find out, they brought in forensic pathologist Dr. Isidore Mahalikas. From the size of the skull, he knew the body was female. The cut marks on the bones and the holes in the clothing helped him to determine the cause of death.
The presence of cuts, which corresponded to perforations in the sweater, is consistent with stab wounds, with movement, and with homicide.
Dr. Mahalikas concluded that this woman had been stabbed in the chest and back at least 7 times, possibly as many as 11. But he wasn't able to make an identification from the remains. For that, Dr. Mahalikas asked forensic odontologist Dr. Dennis Asen to make a dental comparison.
Without the benefit of forensic dentistry, when you have a victim such as Laurie Auker's, in the Laurie Auker case, there are no fingerprints that you can use. The body is unrecognizable because of the disintegration of tissues. Very often, the only thing that does remain is the dental evidence that we can compare to before-death records and establish a positive identification.
After comparing the teeth of the victim to Laurie's dental records and x-rays, Dr. Asen made a positive identification.
The victim had 9 teeth restored with dental materials. Those teeth, as it turned out, were the same teeth that Laurie Auker had restored. The same 9 teeth, the same type of material in each tooth, the same location of materials or restorations in each tooth that matched up with Laurie Auker.
No murder weapon was found at the scene. Investigators now wanted to know when Laurie died. Time of death is usually determined in one of 3 ways. First, by the body temperature, useless in this case given the length of time the body was outside. Another way is to examine stomach contents, but the body was too badly decomposed. The third way is to analyze any insect activity. Forensic entomologist Dr. K. Chung Kim studied the larvae found on the body. An entomologist is an expert in the study of insects.
What this body had was a large number of different kinds of beetles, and then a very late stage of maggots.
Within minutes of death, blowflies can detect the smell of decomposition even from miles away. Standing nearby.
Deeper into the parking lot was a scene that was captured on this video. The scene was a little blurry. I would liken it to like an Alfred Hitchcock kind of movie.
FBI for help, but neither one could improve the photographs. With nowhere else to turn, The FBI suggested they ask NASA for help. NASA had been using sophisticated digital photo enhancement technology to improve images from space. NASA referred the case to research scientist Alan Tejan of the Ballistic Missile Defense Organization.
Challenger, go at throttle up.
Tejan used a technique similar to the one used to determine the cause of the Challenger explosion in 1986.
Digitization is the process of taking the normal video signal that you would get out of your VCR at home and turning it into a computer image file.
When the images are put into the computer, they are broken down into thousands of pixels.
Each of these pixels are converted into a number representing how bright that dot is. In this particular case, the data is black and white video. So the pixel represents simply different shades between total black and full white.
Digital enhancement can also remove blurring in an image, and special filters can eliminate some of the grain. Once complete, you can see how this process significantly improved the images. Prosecutors hoped that these enhanced photographs would tell the story of Laurie Auker's disappearance. The digitally enhanced surveillance photos of the parking lot where Laurie Auker disappeared showed Laurie's car in its parking spot. Standing behind it was a person in the same clothing Laurie wore that day.
The film was in black and white. On that particular scene, we knew that Laurie had been wearing a windbreaker that day, had been wearing jeans, and had carried a white purse. She was of medium build. She had short brown hair. That person that we see in the picture there fits that description precisely.
The next picture, taken 10 seconds later, shows another automobile diagonally in front of Laurie with the passenger's side door open. You can see that Laurie is bent over, looking into the car. The final picture shows Laurie's car still in its parking spot, but Laurie is gone. The car Laurie was standing next to is leaving the parking lot.
The person we've described as Laurie Auker cannot be seen, and we know circumstantially that she never made it into the door. So that, we believe, was the depiction of her abduction.
An automobile expert identified the getaway car as a Chevrolet Celebrity. Although Laurie's estranged husband, Robert, didn't own a Chevrolet Celebrity, his parents did. Robert's parents told police that Robert had borrowed their car on the day Laurie disappeared. They said they sold the car a week after Robert returned it. Police tracked it through 3 different car dealerships.
It transferred hands within the used car industry a few times, and was ultimately purchased. The first consumer that purchased it was a retired state police officer.
The police officer bought the vehicle for his stepdaughter, who hadn't yet reached driving age. So it had been sitting in a garage, a lucky break for investigators.
It still maintained its integrity. By the time we got to it, we were able to access the vehicle, test it scientifically for prints, for trace evidence.
Investigators searched the car, but could find no traces of blood anywhere inside.
Well, we did have some neighbors observe Robert Auker scrupulously cleaning that car the day after Laurie disappeared.
But in the trunk of the car, they found a clue. A tiny strand of hair. Under a microscope, the hair did not appear to be human. On the left is a human hair. On the right, the hair from Robert's trunk. Under an electron microscope, magnified thousands of times, the outer pattern of the hair was more box-like than human hair, similar to the steps on a ladder. The blue specks are dust particles. After looking through numerous species of hair, scientists discovered it was a cat hair. Investigators compared that hair to a cat hair from Laurie's parents' cat and found they were microscopically similar. This was significant since the cat belonged to Laurie's parents. Robert didn't have access to this cat, and the cat never resided with Robert and Laurie when they lived together. What was also significant, Robert's parents didn't own a cat, and Laurie had never been in Robert's parents' car before her disappearance. Investigators believed that this cat hair was proof that Laurie had been in the trunk of Robert's car.
Robert Ocker knew his parents were going to be trading that vehicle in within a matter of days. And in my opinion, that's why he used that vehicle and not his own to abduct Laurie.
With this evidence in hand, police arrested Robert Ocker for the murder of his estranged wife.
When I arrested Robert Ocker, he said to me, "You've got to be kidding."
Is the original surveillance picture of Laurie's alleged abduction. At the bottom is the recreation photograph. The vehicles in both pictures look identical. And prosecutors discovered a possible motive for the murder: money.
Ocker had taken out an insurance policy on Laurie and on his son, listing himself as the beneficiary. He had taken that policy out after they separated.
And Robert and Laurie had been engaged in a custody dispute over their son, another possible motive. A background check of Robert Ocker revealed that he had a troubled past.
Robert Ocker had been in trouble most of his life, as a juvenile up to his adulthood.
Shortly after he married Laurie, Robert was convicted for driving under the influence of alcohol and served a brief stint in prison. While there, Robert ordered a book that described in detail how to commit a murder and get away with it. The title of the book will not be revealed in this program for obvious reasons. Police officials blocked the delivery of this order. Prosecutors believe that on May 24, 1989, as Laurie drove into the mall parking lot, Robert was there, waiting.
What are you doing here? Laurie, I need you to come with me right away.
When Robert drove up and opened the door, he may have used some type of excuse to get Laurie inside, possibly that their son was sick and he needed her help. Prosecutors admit they don't know where the murder took place. The forensic evidence doesn't say. All they know is that Laurie was in Robert's trunk sometime that day and was stabbed numerous times in the chest and back before her body was left at the dump. When Robert later cleaned the trunk, he couldn't see the almost microscopic evidence that Laurie left behind. The cat hair, which had stuck to Laurie's clothing, was transferred again onto the carpet of Robert's trunk. It was an ironic twist, given Laurie's lifelong love of animals.
I remember Laurie as being a very nice person. Just all around nice. She was nice to animals, she was nice to people, and she loved her son, absolutely loved her son.
Robert Auker was found guilty of first-degree murder and kidnapping and was sentenced to death. On appeal, the sentence was reduced to life in prison without parole. NASA's help was an important forensic breakthrough, since it was one of the first times a crime scene photo had undergone digital video enhancement.
The enhancement of the video from the ATM machine was something brand new, something that had never been done before. This is a case that set a trend for prosecutors, certainly throughout Pennsylvania. I think there was an awakening, a scientific awakening on the part of police, on the part of prosecutors. They realized suddenly that there were other tools at their disposal that perhaps they hadn't considered before. And ironically, those tools have now become somewhat routine.
This is the story of two crimes committed in different states, 500 miles apart. In each case, a woman was assaulted late at night. Investigators found the same signature elements in both crimes. The calling card of this perpetrator was so unusual, it eventually cost him his life. Perth Amboy, New Jersey, about an hour's drive from the hustle and bustle of New York City. For 300 years, this riverfront town has been a haven for immigrants seeking a better life in America. Melissa Padilla's parents came from Puerto Rico. She and her 4 brothers grew up here.
Yeah, she was my right hand. She was always helping me with them. She was like a second mother to them. They depend on her.
I remember her often helping me out with my work. She was an excellent speller, and my spelling is just something I've never been able to handle. And she was always there when I needed some help with that.
Melissa attended high school in Perth Amboy, but quit in her junior year and later became pregnant. She had 3 more children in rapid succession, and in 1994 was unmarried and supporting herself and the children with a monthly welfare check.
She didn't have any technical skills or something that would demand a high-paying job, so she would have to suit for minimum wage, and there was no way that she was going to make it with that.
Melissa was able to scrape by for a while, but then she fell behind on her rent and lost her apartment. Melissa and her children then moved into the Gem Motel, one of several cheap motels located along Route 1, a main north-south artery in Avenel, New Jersey. On the night of August 11, 1994, Melissa left the children with her boyfriend and walked to a nearby convenience store for some groceries.
She went out at 11 at night because her kids were hungry.
Melissa left the store around 11:30 and headed back to the motel, but she never arrived. Her boyfriend told police he found her half-naked body later that night along the highway. Melissa's mother got the word shortly after the body was discovered.
You're not supposed to bury your children. That you're gonna die before them. No parents want to bury their children. It's hard. I was supposed to go before her.
Most murderers go to great lengths to avoid detection. Melissa's killer didn't seem to care, committing his crime along a busy highway where he could have been easily seen. It was this brazenness that would eventually be his downfall. When Melissa Padilla left her hotel room to buy food for her young children, her route took her along a well-traveled highway to a nearby convenience store. Melissa never returned. Her boyfriend told police he found her body in a sewer pipe near the highway. She was naked from the waist down.
The autopsy revealed that she died as a result of the manual asphyxiation and assault.
There were several grocery items near the body, as well as Melissa's blood-spattered shorts found about half a block away, with the pocket turned out. But the most telling evidence came from Melissa's body itself.
Her eyes were battered, indicating that she had received punches from someone who was strong and who subdued her in that way. The fact that she was naked and that her genital area was mutilated obviously indicated that there was a sexual assault.
Scrapings from under her fingernails revealed DNA that authorities hoped would bring a conviction if they could only find a suspect. Melissa's autopsy revealed one other detail, something Tom Capsack had never seen in his 31 years of prosecuting homicides.
She had bite marks on her chin and on her left breast, indicating that there was probably some kind of ritualistic element to the killing.
The bite mark on the chin was particularly unusual.
I've done a lot of research and I've talked to a lot of people. Bite marks usually occur to the genital areas, to the breast, to the stomach, but I have never heard of one that occurred to the chin before.
Armed with this evidence, New Jersey police began their search for Melissa's killer. The security video from the Quick Check store where Melissa had bought groceries helped establish the time of the murder, shortly before midnight. It also showed the cashier giving her change. But no money was found in Melissa's clothing, indicating she had also been robbed. Police also began canvassing the area, looking for eyewitnesses.
There was a witness that was identified, that was interviewed, who indicated they were traveling past the roadway and saw what appeared to be two individuals in some sort of struggle, standing up near the concrete pipes.
But the witness could provide little useful information. The battering about Melissa's face and the bite marks on her breast and chin led police to theorize that her killer got a perverse pleasure out of assaulting women and might have struck before. Just a mile from the murder scene was a prison for convicted sex offenders. A check of prison records showed a number of released prisoners living in the area.
We then pulled their files to determine what their MO was and whether they were involved in any kind of ritual when they committed their sex crimes.
They complied with requests for DNA samples. They complied with exemplar requests for hairs. They also submitted to polygraph examinations that were conducted by the Woodbridge Police Department, and they all were eliminated as suspects in the crime.
Melissa's boyfriend, who had stayed with her children, was also eliminated.
Eventually, things started to appear that we have an unsolved homicide with no suspect to pursue.
8 months later, 500 miles away in Maine, there was another assault strikingly similar to Melissa Padilla's.
Excuse me, sir. Are you okay?
This crime was bold and brazen, but the perpetrator made a mistake in choosing his victim. She was a state trooper. Months after the murder of Melissa Padilla, police still didn't have a suspect. The brutality of the assault led police to believe her killer took pleasure in attacking women and might strike again. 8 months later, state troopers in Maine reported a brazen assault on one of their own. The assault took place on April 3rd, 1995 at about 8:30 p.m. Trooper Vicki Gardner, an 11-year veteran, was off duty and driving her police cruiser south on Interstate 95.
She came across a vehicle facing the wrong way on the interstate, and she stopped to investigate.
Excuse me, sir. Are you okay?
Gardner discovered that the driver, Stephen Fortin, had been drinking.
Would you please get out of the car?
Since she was off duty, she called for another police vehicle to take Fortin into custody.
Could you send some backup?
When Fortin heard this, he exploded.
Fortin sucker punched her, ripped her clothes off, molested her. In the process of molesting her, he bit her. And when the backup cruiser arrived, he took off in the cruiser.
Vicki Gardner was unconscious, still in the vehicle. When she regained consciousness, she opened the passenger door and tried to jump out.
He was sort of trying to reach out and grab a hold of her and pull her back in, and she swung herself away from him and got away from him.
Vicki Gardner was lucky to be alive.
I've never seen a woman attacked that way, damaged that badly, who lived to talk about it.
After Vicki jumped out of the vehicle, Fortin lost control of the car and crashed. He was later apprehended. Lieutenant Lancaster interviewed him in prison.
He took no responsibility. It was while we spoke, though we spoke of the incident, it was always somebody else's fault. I knew that I was dealing with someone that was evil.
Vicki had scrapes and bruises over her entire body, and her face was severely battered. Fortin had not only punched and assaulted her, he had also left a bizarre calling card. 2 bite marks, one on the outer area of her left breast, the other on her chin.
Who attacks a trooper and sexually molests her in her own cruiser? You just know from the facts of this case and the assault and the way in which the assault took place and every aspect about it, you knew that you were dealing with someone who had done something like this before.
In fact, A check of police records in Fortin's home state of New Jersey revealed that he had a history of violence. Fortin's name was well known to Prosecutor Capsack. He had sent him to prison for 7 years on a manslaughter charge. Fortin got out after only 2.5 years.
He had stabbed his brother in the throat in 1983 in the township of Carteret, and pled guilty to that.
When the New Jersey State Police heard the news of Steve Fortin's assault in Maine, they naturally wanted to find out if Fortin was in New Jersey on the night Melissa Padilla was killed. An interview with Fortin's former girlfriend provided the answer.
And she told us that in August of 1994, Stephen Fortin did in fact live in Avenel, New Jersey. In fact, he lived in an apartment with her. And on the very night in question, he assaulted her in the parking lot of a restaurant, and she called the police, and he ran.
That restaurant, Bud's Hut, was a short walk from the Gem Motel where Melissa was living. The police report listed the time of the assault on Dawn Archer as 10:30 p.m., an hour before Melissa was murdered. At last, authorities had a suspect. Melissa's brother got the word a day after his birthday.
I didn't consider it a birthday gift, but I was glad that they did find him. And I was praying that they would find him before he could ever do that to someone else.
They found him, but now they had to prove him guilty. Prosecutors hoped the DNA evidence taken from under Melissa's fingernails would incriminate Fortin, but it didn't.
When it was compared to Stephen Fortin from Maine's evidence that we obtained from them, the DNA lab could not include him or exclude him as a source.
With the DNA results inconclusive, the bite marks on the 2 victims seemed to be prosecutors' best chance of linking Fortin to Melissa Padilla's murder. A plaster impression was therefore made on Fortin's teeth. The impression, along with photographs of the bite marks, were sent to Dr. Lowell Levine, a respected forensic odontologist who worked for the New York State Police.
These are Mr. Fortin's teeth, or actually models of them. And they're made the same way as the orthodontist would take models or the dentist takes models to do prosthetic devices. If you take a look at the upper teeth, he's got a space between his 2 middle front ones. And the one on the right is bigger than the one on the left because it's a cap. And in fact, the biting surface is slightly wider also from front to back. If you look at the models of the lower teeth, they're very, very straight across the bottom of them. He's got almost no wear on the incisal edges, so they leave linear markings rather than rectangles, and they're very, very straight across, and he's got the slightly pointed canines, so he doesn't have a whole lot of wear.
Levine compared Fortin's teeth to the bite marks on Vicki Gardner and Melissa Padilla. He found them to be a match. Leaving nothing to chance, prosecutors also brought in Roy Hazelwood, a former FBI profiler and an expert on criminal behavior.
He was interested in my studying the crimes to determine whether or not I could do a linkage analysis in the 2 crimes. A linkage analysis is an in-depth study of 2 or more crimes with the idea of attempting to determine whether or not they were committed by the same person.
Hazelwood concluded that the same man had indeed committed both crimes. The trial of Stephen Fortin began on October 31st, 2000. A trial with no eyewitnesses, circumstantial evidence, and inconclusive DNA findings. The prosecutor's case rested almost entirely on the opinions of 2 forensic experts. The murder of Melissa Padilla and the assault of a Maine state trooper were so strikingly similar that this became a critical part of the prosecution's case. At Stephen Fortin's trial, Maine State Trooper Vicki Gardner took the stand to describe how Fortin had beaten and sexually assaulted her.
Then we had to bring in witnesses that brought the two crimes together, and they were Hazelwood and Levine.
Addressing the jury, Roy Hazelwood explained that some crimes, like the murder of Melissa Padilla and the assault of Trooper Gardner, have unique patterns of behavior which he called rituals.
The ritual are those acts which are unnecessary to the commission of the crime and are carried out to meet the emotional needs of the offender.
In this case, the need for psychosexual gratification. Hazelwood identified 5 examples of ritualistic behavior that were common to both cases.
Bite mark to the chin, bite mark to the left breast, excessive battering to the upper portion of the face in both instances, injurious anal penetration, and manual strangulation from the front. I've never seen that combination of behaviors in any other crime.
Then Dr. Levine explained to the jury that no two people have teeth patterns that are exactly the same.
What I basically did was to show the jurors that people leave bite marks that look different. We used 2 of the prosecutors, myself, and 1 of the investigators, so that bite marks look different.
Dr. Levine showed the jury overlays of Steve Fortin's teeth.
We were able to show the jury how the overlays fit over the life-size photographs of the bite mark on the victim. We did it by animating the overlay so that it moves across the screen and stops exactly on the bite mark. And it was very effective, and it was very dramatic, and I think it worked very well.
New Jersey authorities are coming for...
The jury deliberated Stephen Fortin's fate for 2 days before reaching their verdict. Guilty. In the penalty phase, prosecutors asked for the death sentence and concluded by explaining to the jury why Fortin had bitten his victims on the chin.
What we finally decided regarding the bite mark to the chin was that Stephen Fortin was biting the victim on the chin while he was looking in her eyes and mutilating her genitals, and that he was getting a perverse pleasure out of that.
On February 26, 2001, Fortin was sentenced to die by lethal injection.
It was justice, but I didn't feel like a vengeance, that justice should have been served, you know. I was grateful.
Roy Hazelwood and Lola Levine were absolutely critical to the case. This case, like most murder cases, depended on circumstantial evidence, on forensic evidence, on expert testimony.
And the tools those experts have to draw on, says Hazelwood, are growing more and more sophisticated every year.
I'm continuously amazed at the strides we've made in investigating crimes and solving crimes and prosecuting crimes.
Stephen Fortin is now in Trenton State Prison, awaiting execution. Melissa Padilla's sons are living with their father. Her daughters are being raised by Melissa's mom.
She was a good mother, good sister, good friend. She was a wonderful daughter.
She was a good person. Had a big heart. And I'm sorry her kids won't be able to know that.
Some towns bury their dead, others bury their secrets. Blackridge, Kentucky did both. By the summer of 2024, almost everyone had forgotten 16-year-old Emily Carter, the girl who vanished during the County Harvest Festival on a warm September night in 1981. Her smiling face had long disappeared from bulletin boards. The newspaper clippings had yellowed inside courthouse archives. The investigation had been reduced to a cardboard box marked cold case, pushed onto the highest shelf where dust settled thicker each passing year. Yet secrets do not disappear simply because people stop speaking their names. They wait, quietly, patiently, sometimes for decades. Then, without warning, one forgotten detail tears everything open again. Retired Sheriff Walter Hayes never intended to reopen the case. At 73, he had traded patrol roads for quiet mornings on his small horse farm outside Blackridge. His revolver remained locked inside a bedroom drawer. His badge rested in a wooden display case beside faded photographs of deputies who had long since passed away. His days were measured by sunrise, coffee, and the rhythm of ordinary life. But ordinary life has a habit of ending with one unexpected phone call. The call came just after 6 on a rainy Tuesday morning. County Clerk Megan Brooks sounded nervous. "Walter, they're demolishing the old sheriff's annex." Walter looked across the porch at the falling rain. "So, they found something. What kind of something?" There was a long pause. "A box." Silence. "What was inside?" "Evidence." Walter's expression changed immediately. "What evidence?" His coffee suddenly tasted cold. 20 minutes later, Walter parked outside the abandoned annex building. Construction crews stood behind yellow tape while investigators photographed a narrow storage room hidden behind a false wall. The annex had survived multiple renovations over 4 decades, yet nobody realized the concealed room even existed until workers accidentally broke through deteriorating drywall. Inside sat metal shelves filled with forgotten evidence cartons coated in gray dust. Most belonged to old burglary cases already solved decades earlier. One box did not. The faded label read only 3 words: Emily Carter. Walter stared at the handwriting. He recognized it instantly. His own. Back then he had been a 29-year-old deputy assigned to assist the investigation. Young, ambitious, certain that every mystery could be solved if detectives simply worked hard enough. He had been wrong. Emily disappeared without leaving a single clear trail. No ransom demand. No confirmed suspect. No murder weapon. No body. Nothing. Only questions. Walter carefully lifted the evidence box onto an empty table. The seal had never been broken. Not once. Someone had hidden it before it officially entered storage. Someone wanted this evidence forgotten. State investigators photographed every item before opening the carton. Inside rested several evidence envelopes. A cassette tape. 2 undeveloped rolls of film. Emily's blue denim jacket. A disposable camera. A small notebook wrapped carefully inside a plastic evidence bag. Walter frowned. He remembered collecting the jacket. He remembered the disposable camera. He did not remember the notebook. He certainly did not remember undeveloped film. The original evidence inventory contained neither. Someone had removed them from the official record, then hidden everything behind a wall. For 43 years, nobody spoke. The implications settled over the room like smoke. This wasn't lost evidence. Someone had concealed it deliberately. The laboratory immediately transported the entire collection for modern forensic examination. Walter watched the evidence disappear through the rear doors of the state crime van. He couldn't shake one thought. If the notebook had remained hidden all these years, what else had investigators never seen? By noon, the state police formally reopened the Emily Carter investigation. Reporters gathered outside the courthouse within hours. News stations across Kentucky revived a story many younger residents had never heard before. 1981 cold case reopened. Hidden evidence found. Former sheriff returns to investigation. Walter disliked cameras. He ignored every microphone. He wanted only one thing: answers. The original case file had filled nearly 900 pages. Walter spent the next 3 days reading every line again. Emily Carter left the Harvest Festival at approximately 9:12 p.m. Several witnesses watched her walking toward the gravel parking lot behind the football field. She planned to meet her older brother. He never arrived. At 9:26 p.m., another witness reported hearing a woman scream somewhere beyond the tree line near Miller Creek. Nobody investigated immediately. The festival fireworks had already begun. Music drowned almost every other sound. Emily never returned home. Search teams found her bicycle early the next morning beside an abandoned tobacco warehouse nearly 2 miles from the festival. Its front wheel remained slowly turning when the first deputy arrived. Her backpack lay nearby, untouched, money still inside, school books scattered across wet grass. No blood, no obvious signs of struggle, just absence. An entire county search for weeks. Dogs tracked Emily's scent to the warehouse entrance. Then, nothing. The trail simply ended. Some detectives believed she entered a vehicle. Others argued she crossed the creek. Neither theory produced evidence. Months became years. Years became decades. The case slowly disappeared beneath newer tragedies. Walter closed the final case file and rubbed his tired eyes. Something bothered him. The warehouse. It had always bothered him. Search reports described every inch of the building. Yet none mentioned the upstairs office overlooking the loading dock. Walter remembered climbing those stairs himself. He remembered broken windows, dust, old furniture. Why had nobody documented the office? The next morning he drove there alone. Time had nearly erased the warehouse. The roof sagged dangerously. Trees pushed through cracked concrete. Rust consumed every steel beam. Walter climbed the unstable staircase carefully. The upstairs office remained almost untouched. Dust covered everything. Sunlight filtered through shattered glass. A desk still stood against the far wall. Walter examined it quietly, then noticed something unusual. A fresh scrape across the wooden floor. Construction crews hadn't been here. Teenagers rarely entered because the building was considered unsafe. Someone had moved the desk recently. With surprising effort, Walter dragged the heavy desk aside. Beneath it sat a square metal hatch almost invisible beneath decades of dirt. His pulse quickened. The hatch opened reluctantly. Below stretched a narrow maintenance shaft descending into darkness. Walter switched on his flashlight. The beam illuminated old pipes, collapsed insulation, and something else. A faded canvas duffel bag, hidden where nobody would casually discover it. He climbed down carefully. The bag remained dry despite decades underground. Inside were several ordinary objects. A flashlight, a coil of rope, an old flannel jacket, a rusted hunting knife. Then Walter discovered the final item. A driver's license. The photograph had faded almost white. The plastic cracked with age. But one name remained readable. Daniel Mercer. Walter's breathing slowed. Daniel Mercer. The last person officially known to have spoken with Emily Carter on the night she vanished. Interviewed twice. Never charged. He left Kentucky 3 weeks after Emily disappeared. Died in Tennessee in 1998. Everyone believed his connection to the case ended with routine questioning. So why was his driver's license hidden beneath an abandoned warehouse? Walter climbed back into the office carrying the bag. Outside, thunder rolled across the Kentucky hills. For the first time in 43 years, the Emily Carter investigation had something it never truly possessed before. Not a rumor, not speculation. Evidence deliberately hidden. Evidence connected to the last known witness. Evidence waiting patiently in darkness until someone finally looked beneath the surface. Walter stood silently inside the abandoned warehouse as rain began striking the broken windows. The cold case was no longer sleeping. It had just begun waking up. Walter sealed the canvas duffel bag inside a fresh evidence container before leaving the warehouse. Every instinct told him not to touch another item. 43 years earlier, he would have examined everything himself. Age had taught him patience. Evidence survived because investigators respected it. One careless fingerprint, one misplaced fiber, one broken chain of custody. Cases had collapsed over less. By the time he reached the Kentucky State Police Laboratory in Frankfort, the forensic team had already begun processing the hidden evidence recovered from the annex. The atmosphere inside the lab had changed completely. What had started as an old missing person case now looked increasingly like an intentional cover-up. Forensic technician Rachel Monroe greeted Walter with a tired expression. "You need to see this." She led him into the photography lab. On a light table lay the first developed negatives from one of the forgotten film rolls. Most frames were ruined. Water damage had destroyed nearly half the images. The remaining photographs slowly emerged one after another. The county harvest festival, children riding carnival attractions, food vendors, families smiling beneath strings of lights. Nothing unusual. Then frame 12 appeared. Rachel enlarged the image digitally. Walter leaned closer. Emily Carter stood near the entrance to the fairgrounds. She wasn't alone. Standing only a few feet behind her was Daniel Mercer. Neither appeared aware of the camera. Daniel seemed to be watching her. Not speaking. Watching. The timestamp printed onto the film margin read 8:41 p.m. Nearly 30 minutes before Emily vanished. Walter studied Daniel's posture. Hands inside his jacket pockets. Head slightly lowered. His attention never left Emily. Rachel spoke quietly. "There's another one. Frame 13. Emily had begun walking toward the livestock barns. Daniel followed, still several yards behind. Frame 14. The distance closed. Frame 15. They disappeared behind a line of parked trucks. No additional photographs survived. Walter looked up slowly. "This camera." Rachel nodded. "It wasn't Emily's." "What?" "The serial number belongs to a local newspaper photographer." Walter frowned. "The newspaper covered the festival?" "Yes. But here's the strange part. The photographer reported his camera stolen that same night." Walter felt another piece fall into place. Someone had unknowingly photographed the beginning of Emily's final movements. Then the camera vanished, only to reappear hidden inside a forgotten evidence box. Meanwhile, another laboratory across the building focused on Emily's blue denim jacket. In 1981, investigators found nothing useful. Technology had changed dramatically. Modern alternate light examination revealed dozens of microscopic particles trapped deep inside the fabric. Plant material, industrial dust, metal fragments. Most were expected. One wasn't. A fine layer of white limestone powder. Rachel compared the particles against regional geological samples. Only one location within 20 miles matched the mineral composition precisely. The abandoned Blackridge limestone quarry. Walter's eyes narrowed. The quarry had been searched once. Only once. 3 days after Emily disappeared. Heavy rain flooded much of the property before investigators completed their work. The search ended early. No one ever returned. Walter drove there before sunset. The quarry had remained abandoned since the late 1970s. Nature slowly reclaimed the massive excavation. Water filled the lower pit. Trees grew through broken conveyor belts. Silence hung over everything. He parked beside the rusted entrance gate. The place felt strangely familiar. Then he remembered. Daniel Mercer once worked here during high school. The employment record sat somewhere inside the original case file. Walter had overlooked it. So had everyone else. He walked slowly along the cracked hall road. Fresh tire tracks crossed the muddy entrance. Recent. Within days. Construction vehicles couldn't reach this area. No active business operated nearby. Someone had visited. Walter followed the tracks until they disappeared beside an old maintenance building. The structure leaned dangerously. Most windows were shattered. Inside, decades of dust covered abandoned machinery. Walter swept his flashlight across the floor. Nothing. Then he noticed footprints. Modern boot prints. 2 different sizes, one larger than the other. Neither belonged to him. Someone else had entered recently. Back at the laboratory, another discovery emerged. The forgotten notebook from the annex evidence box had survived remarkably well. The outer pages were blank. Several middle pages contained grocery lists and school assignments. Emily's handwriting. Nothing unusual. Then forensic imaging revealed impressions pressed into pages beneath the visible writing. Emily had once written on paper resting above these pages. The original sheet had been torn away. Pressure marks remained. Technicians enhanced the impressions digitally. Slowly, words appeared. "Meet me after the fireworks." "Don't tell anyone." "I finally know what happened." Walter stared at the reconstructed message. The note ended with only one initial. D. Daniel. or someone else entirely? Investigators reopened Daniel Mercer's life from the beginning. 22 years old in 1981. Mechanic. Part-time security guard. No criminal convictions. Known locally as quiet. Helpful. Reliable. He moved to Knoxville only weeks after Emily disappeared. Married. Worked construction. Died in a highway accident 17 years later. Nothing in his official history suggested violence. Yet hidden evidence kept leading back to him. Rachel entered Walter's office carrying another report. The jacket. What about it? We recovered hair. Walter looked surprised. Emily's. Rachel shook her head. Male. No root. No nuclear DNA. But enough for mitochondrial sequencing. Walter understood immediately. Not perfect identification, but enough to trace maternal lineage. Enough to eliminate or include families. The analysis would take several days. That evening, Walter visited Emily's younger sister, Hannah. She was 12 when Emily disappeared. Now she was 55. Her living room remained filled with family photographs. Emily smiled from nearly every shelf. Time had moved forward. The family never truly had. Walter placed the enhanced photograph on the table. Hannah stared for several seconds. I've never seen this. It was hidden. She nodded slowly, then pointed toward Daniel. He was always around. Walter looked up. What do you mean? I saw him twice before the festival. Where? The grocery store. And he acted like he already knew Emily. Walter frowned. They'd met before. I think so. Emily never mentioned Daniel during interviews. Neither had Hannah. Not because she was hiding anything. Because nobody had asked. Walter returned home long after dark. Rain had started again. He spread copies of every new photograph across his dining room table. Emily. Daniel. The quarry. The warehouse. The hidden evidence. Nothing fit together cleanly. Not yet. Then his eyes stopped on one overlooked detail inside photograph 13. A pickup truck. Parked behind the livestock barns. Only part of its rear bumper remained visible. Rachel enlarged the image overnight. The resolution barely held together. Still, one sticker on the rear window became readable. Mercer Construction. Walter immediately searched state business records. Mercer Construction didn't belong to Daniel. It belonged to his older brother, Samuel Mercer. Interviewed exactly once in October 1981. Claimed he was repairing farm equipment 20 miles away. Investigators accepted his alibi without question. Walter slowly leaned back. Daniel had always been considered the last witness. Perhaps investigators had been asking the wrong Mercer brother all along. Just as Walter reached for the telephone, Rachel called from the laboratory. Her voice sounded unusually tense. We finished restoring the cassette tape. Walter stood. Anything useful? A long pause followed. Then Rachel answered. You need to hear this yourself. There are voices, and one of them, that sounds exactly like Emily Carter. Walter arrived at the forensic audio laboratory before sunrise. The building was almost empty. Only the soft hum of servers and climate-controlled evidence lockers broke the silence. Rachel Monroe waited beside a restored reel-to-reel playback system connected to modern digital enhancement software. The cassette rested inside a protective enclosure. 43 years had nearly destroyed it. The magnetic tape had stretched. Moisture had warped portions of the recording. Every second recovered from it had taken hours of restoration. Rachel looked at Walter. We've isolated the clearest sections. Walter nodded. Play it. Static filled the room. Then, distant carnival music. Children laughing. An announcer calling raffle numbers over loudspeakers. The recording sounded as though someone had placed a small tape recorder inside a jacket pocket. A male voice appeared first. Young. Come. Everything's ready. Another voice answered. Lower. Older. We wait until after the fireworks. Walter glanced toward Rachel. Neither recognized the second speaker. The tape continued. Footsteps. Wind. More static. Then, a young woman's voice. Clear. Confident. Daniel. Walter felt the hairs on his neck rise. Emily Carter. There was no doubt. Her sister later confirmed the voice within seconds. Emily sounded curious, not frightened. What did you want to show me? Daniel answered quietly. I found something. What? It's easier if I show you. A brief silence followed. Then Emily laughed softly. You've been acting strange all week. Daniel replied almost immediately. You'll understand. The conversation ended beneath the explosion of fireworks overhead. The audio distorted badly for nearly a minute. When it became clear again, the voices had changed location. The carnival music sounded farther away. Gravel crunched beneath footsteps. Someone opened a vehicle door. Emily spoke again. This isn't the way to Miller Road. Daniel answered. We're making one stop. Walter pressed pause. His eyes remained fixed on the speakers. Emily hadn't been abducted. At least not initially. She entered the vehicle voluntarily. Because she trusted Daniel. Rachel restarted the recording. Another male voice entered. This one deeper. Older than Daniel. So she came. Walter immediately looked toward Rachel. Samuel. Rachel shrugged. Could be. Emily sounded confused. I thought it was just Daniel. Nobody answered. For several seconds, only wind could be heard. Then Emily's tone changed. What is this? Another pause. Daniel spoke again. Emily. I'm sorry. The recording erupted into overlapping voices. A vehicle engine started. Someone shouted. The tape struck against something hard. Then, a scream. Sharp. Sudden. It lasted less than 2 seconds before cutting off completely. Walter instinctively gripped the edge of the table. Static consumed the next several moments. When intelligible speech returned, only one sentence remained clear. The unidentified older male voice said quietly, Now we don't have a choice. The cassette ended. No explanation. No confession. Only silence. For nearly 10 minutes, no one inside the laboratory spoke. Walter finally exhaled. That wasn't planned. Rachel looked at him. You think it was an accident? Walter shook his head slowly. I think something happened they didn't expect. Emily willingly entered the truck. She wasn't screaming then. Something changed afterward. Something sudden. Something irreversible. Investigators immediately reopened Samuel Mercer's original interview. The transcript contained only 4 pages. Embarrassingly short. He claimed he spent the entire evening repairing a combine harvester on the Walker family farm. Detectives never verified the statement. No written work order existed. No fuel receipt. No witness interview beyond Samuel's employer. Walter frowned. That wasn't an investigation. That was an assumption. State police located Samuel's only surviving daughter in Lexington. She agreed to provide family documents stored after her father's death in 2012. Most boxes contained ordinary paperwork. Tax returns, insurance policies, old photographs. Near the bottom of one container, investigators discovered a small appointment calendar from 1981. Most entries were routine. Equipment deliveries, payroll reminders, hunting season dates. Then Walter reached September 19th. The day after Emily disappeared. Written in thick black ink were 4 words. Destroy everything tomorrow. No explanation. No list of what needed destroying. Just that sentence. Walter closed the calendar. The timing was impossible to ignore. Meanwhile, forensic geologists completed their analysis of the limestone powder recovered from Emily's jacket. The particles contained an unusually high concentration of crushed fluorite. Only one section of the abandoned Blackridge quarry matched that composition. The eastern pit, ironically, the only section never fully searched in 1981 because floodwaters had submerged it before investigators arrived. Modern sonar equipment could examine the flooded excavation in hours. Walter requested authorization immediately. Search crews arrived 2 days later. Divers entered the dark quarry water shortly after sunrise. Visibility measured less than 2 feet. The first several hours produced nothing beyond rusted mining equipment and abandoned oil drums. Late that afternoon, one diver reported finding a submerged pickup truck nearly 40 feet below the surface. Excitement spread quickly. The vehicle had no license plates. Its cab had collapsed after decades underwater. Recovery cranes slowly lifted it onto shore. Walter watched mud pour from shattered windows. Inside, no human remains, but investigators discovered something almost as important. A toolbox, still locked. Forensic technicians opened it carefully. Most tools had rusted beyond recognition. One waterproof plastic container remained intact. Inside rested several rolls of undeveloped camera film and a folded county road map. Large red circles marked 3 locations: the Harvest Festival, the abandoned tobacco warehouse, the Eastern Quarry Pit. Walter stared at the map. Those were the same 3 places dominating the investigation today. Someone had planned those movements long before Emily disappeared. Rachel called again that evening. "We identified the recorder." Walter frowned. "The cassette recorder?" "Yes." "The serial number survived." "Who owned it?" Rachel hesitated. "The Blackridge Sheriff's Office." Walter's expression hardened. "What?" "It was department property. Issued in 1979 for witness interviews. Reported missing in early 1981. Never recovered." Walter remembered it immediately. Portable tape recorders had been rare. Only a handful existed. Someone connected to law enforcement had access to that recorder before Emily vanished. The discovery opened an entirely new line of inquiry. Had the recorder been stolen, borrowed, or intentionally removed? Walter returned to the old Sheriff's Department archives. Personnel files lined metal shelves from floor to ceiling. Dust covered nearly everything. He searched maintenance logs until midnight. Finally, inside a faded equipment ledger, he found the entry. Recorder number 4. Signed out, September 17th, 1981. Borrowed for field interviews. Signature, Deputy Harold Collins. Walter sat motionless. Harold Collins, lead investigator on Emily's disappearance. Dead since 2005. The same man who supervised the original evidence room. The same man who approved every inventory list. The same man who somehow failed to document hidden photographs. The notebook, the cassette, and the undeveloped film. Walter slowly closed the ledger. For 43 years, everyone assumed the investigation failed because detectives lacked evidence. Now it appeared evidence had existed all along. Someone simply made sure nobody else ever saw it. Just before leaving the archives, Walter noticed one final document tucked inside Harold Collins' personnel folder. A handwritten resignation letter drafted, but never submitted. Most of the page discussed health problems. Near the bottom, one sentence had been scratched out so heavily it was almost unreadable. Forensic photography later enhanced the writing. The recovered words sent a chill through everyone who saw them. "I should have told the truth about the Mercers." Harold Collins had been dead for nearly 20 years. His grave overlooked the same rolling Kentucky hills he had patrolled for most of his career. To the people of Blackridge, he remained a respected deputy who never stopped looking for Emily Carter. To Walter Hayes, that image began to crack. The scratched-out sentence in Harold's unsent resignation letter refused to leave his mind. "I should have told the truth about the Mercers." One sentence, 9 words, enough to change the direction of a 43-year-old investigation. Walter spread every document involving the Mercer family across the conference table. Daniel Mercer, Samuel Mercer, employment records, property deeds, interview transcripts, old newspaper clippings. The pattern became impossible to ignore. Their names appeared again and again around the edges of the investigation. Never at the center, always close enough to matter, never close enough to become suspects. Someone had carefully kept them there. State investigators reopened Harold Collins' personal storage locker, preserved after his retirement, and never thoroughly inventoried following his death. Most of its contents reflected an ordinary law enforcement career. Retirement plaques, old uniforms, training manuals, boxes of faded case notes. Near the bottom sat a locked metal cash box. No inventory record mentioned it. A locksmith opened it under forensic supervision. Inside were several notebooks, a stack of undeveloped negatives, and one sealed envelope. Across the front, Harold had written in blue ink, "Not for official file." Walter felt his heartbeat quicken. He carefully unfolded the papers inside. The first page listed dates. The second contained names. The third, a rough sketch of the abandoned tobacco warehouse. Certain rooms had been circled repeatedly. One section was labeled, "Basement Access." Walter frowned. Every official report insisted the warehouse had no basement. Had investigators missed something? Or had Harold discovered it after the search officially ended? Before anyone could answer, another report arrived from the forensic laboratory. The male hair recovered from Emily's denim jacket had completed mitochondrial DNA analysis. The result did not identify a specific individual. It identified a maternal family line. The sample excluded hundreds of local families. Only one remained consistent: the Mercer family. Rachel laid the report on the table. It could be Daniel. It could be Samuel. It could be another maternal relative. Walter nodded. It puts one of them in physical contact with Emily. For the first time since 1981, the Mercer brothers were connected to the victim through forensic evidence rather than witness statements. The investigation returned to the abandoned warehouse. This time engineers accompanied detectives. Ground-penetrating radar scanned beneath the cracked concrete floor. Most readings reflected buried utility pipes. Then one rectangular anomaly appeared beneath the loading platform. Roughly 8 feet long, 6 feet wide, too symmetrical to be natural. Construction crews carefully removed decades-old concrete. Dust filled the building. Hours passed. Finally, the excavator struck steel. A rusted hatch, hidden beneath a poured concrete slab. Walter stared silently. The warehouse had contained a basement all along. Someone had sealed it. The hatch resisted every attempt to open it. Corrosion fused the hinges shut. After cutting through the locking mechanism, investigators slowly lifted the heavy steel cover. Cold air escaped from below. The chamber measured barely 10 feet across. Originally built as a storm shelter decades earlier, shelves lined the walls. Most had collapsed. The floor remained remarkably dry. Flashlights swept across the room. Empty bottles. Rotting wooden crates. Old newspapers from the 1960s. Nothing connected to Emily. Then Rachel's light settled on a corner covered by a mold-stained tarp. She pulled it away carefully. Beneath it sat a rusted blue bicycle. Walter recognized it instantly. Emily's bicycle. The same bicycle officially reported found outside the warehouse on September 19, 1981. Everyone froze. That couldn't be possible. According to every evidence photograph, the bicycle had been recovered by deputies and returned to the Carter family weeks later. Walter looked closer. The serial number matched Emily's, which meant one of two things. Either investigators had recovered the wrong bicycle in 1981, or someone had secretly replaced the original before evidence processing. Neither possibility seemed believable. Yet the bicycle stood directly in front of them, covered in 43 years of dust. Forensic examination began immediately. The tires had completely deteriorated. The frame remained intact. Tiny fibers clung beneath the handlebars. Modern DNA swabs collected dozens of microscopic samples. One latent fingerprint survived inside the chrome bell. Partial. Incomplete. Still potentially usable. Walter walked slowly around the shelter. His flashlight stopped on another object. A child's red lunchbox. Inside lay several cassette tapes, each carefully labeled by date. Most ranged from August through September 1981. No explanation accompanied them. Rachel picked up the first tape. The recorder! Walter nodded slowly. Someone had been recording conversations for weeks. Back at the laboratory, technicians digitized the earliest cassette. Most contained ordinary sounds. Traffic, machinery, background conversations. Then, halfway through the third tape, a familiar voice emerged. Deputy Harold Collins. Walter recognized him immediately. Harold wasn't interviewing anyone. He was speaking privately. "I don't like this." Another male voice answered. "You ask too many questions." Harold responded. "That girl disappeared." Silence. Then the unidentified speaker calmly replied, "You never saw anything." The tape abruptly ended. Walter listened twice more. The second voice didn't belong to Daniel Mercer. It didn't belong to Samuel Mercer. Whoever spoke had remained completely unknown for 43 years. Investigators searched Harold's financial records. Routine at first. Salary deposits, mortgage payments, utility bills. Nothing unusual. Until October 1981, 3 weeks after Emily vanished. A cash deposit, $25,000. No documented source. No inheritance. No lottery winnings. No property sale. Just cash. An enormous amount for a deputy sheriff in 1981. Walter stared at the bank record. Bribery. It was the first explanation that made sense. Someone had paid Harold, whether to remain silent or to alter the investigation. The money arrived immediately after Emily disappeared. Late that evening, Walter drove to the Carter family farmhouse. Emily's younger sister Hannah waited on the porch. She had spent decades hoping for answers. Walter rarely brought good news. Tonight was different. He showed her the photograph of the bicycle recovered from the hidden shelter. Hannah's face went pale. "That's hers." "We believe so." She pointed toward the handlebars. "My father painted that tiny white stripe after she crashed it." Walter looked closer. A faint brush mark remained beneath layers of rust. The bicycle was unquestionably Emily's. Hannah slowly lowered herself into a chair. "If that's a bike." She looked directly at Walter. "Whose bike did you give us to bury?" Walter had no answer. For 43 years, the Carter family had believed they received Emily's recovered bicycle as one of the final pieces of physical evidence from the investigation. Now they learned the bicycle buried in the hidden basement was the real one. Somebody had swapped evidence inside the sheriff's department. Somebody with access. Somebody protected. Somebody who understood exactly how to make the truth disappear. As Walter prepared to leave, Rachel called from the laboratory. Her voice was tense. "We cleaned the dirt from beneath the bicycle seat." Walter immediately stopped. "What did you find?" "A blood stain." He closed his eyes. "Emily's." Rachel answered quietly. "We're running the DNA now." She paused. "But there's something else." "What?" "The blood isn't the only thing on the seat." Walter waited. Rachel took a slow breath before speaking. "We found a fingerprint, and it belongs to someone already in the original case file." Walter reached the forensic laboratory just before midnight. No one had gone home. Coffee cups lined the evidence tables. Computer screens glowed beneath dim ceiling lights. The fingerprint report sat inside a sealed folder. Rachel didn't speak immediately. She simply slid the comparison photographs across the table. On the left lay the latent print recovered from beneath the bicycle seat. On the right, a fingerprint card taken in October 1981. The ridge patterns aligned almost perfectly. Walter read the name. Deputy Harold Collins. The room remained silent. Harold had physically handled Emily's bicycle. That fact alone wasn't surprising. He had worked the case. What mattered was where the print had been found. Not on the handlebars. Not on the frame. It was hidden beneath the seat, a place impossible to touch during ordinary evidence collection. Harold had either moved the bicycle or deliberately concealed something attached to it. Rachel carefully removed the bicycle seat. Years of corrosion had welded the bolts into place. When the final bolt came free, the underside of the leather saddle revealed a narrow strip of electrical tape. Nobody in 1981 had documented it. Walter leaned closer. Rachel peeled the tape away with tweezers. Folded tightly inside was a tiny key. Brass. Old. No markings except the number 17 stamped into one side. Walter frowned. A locker key. Probably. But whose locker? No one knew. Meanwhile, forensic biologists completed testing on the dried blood recovered from the bicycle seat. The laboratory comparison took less than an hour. The results stunned everyone. The blood belonged to Emily Carter. Not a large amount. Only a few microscopic drops trapped beneath the leather. Enough to confirm one simple fact. Emily had been bleeding before investigators claimed to recover the bicycle. The official reports never mentioned blood. Not once. Someone had intentionally overlooked it, or hidden it. Neither possibility could be ignored any longer. Walter reopened Harold Collins' handwritten notes. One sentence suddenly carried new meaning. Warehouse secured before inventory. He read it again. The official search didn't begin until nearly noon on September 19th. Harold reached the warehouse shortly after sunrise. For almost 4 hours, he had been alone with the scene. No witnesses, no supervising detective, no evidence technicians. Just Harold, and whatever he found inside. The investigation shifted toward county property records. The number engraved on the brass key, 17, might correspond to an old storage locker. Blackridge once maintained rental lockers inside the now-demolished Greyhound bus terminal. The building closed in 1989. Most records had been destroyed. Most. County archivists eventually uncovered a faded ledger listing long-term rentals. Locker 17. Rented September 3, 1981. Cash payment. 30-day term. No address. Only one signature. D. Mercer. Walter looked up slowly. Daniel again. The bus terminal no longer existed. Its lockers had been auctioned years earlier after demolition. State police tracked the buyer to a retired salvage dealer living outside Louisville. The old man remembered purchasing dozens of lockers for scrap. Most were cut apart. A few remained inside an unused warehouse. Walter arrived the following afternoon. Rows of rusting lockers leaned against concrete walls. The faded number 17 remained barely visible. The original lock had never been removed. Rachel inserted the recovered brass key. It turned immediately. The door opened with a long metallic groan. Inside rested only one object. A large brown envelope. Dry. Untouched. Sealed since 1981. Across the front someone had written, "If anything happens to me." Walter carefully opened it beneath forensic supervision. Inside were 6 photographs. The first showed Daniel Mercer standing beside his pickup truck at the Harvest Festival. Ordinary. The second captured Emily speaking with him. The third. Walter's heartbeat slowed. Samuel Mercer appeared beside the truck. The fourth photograph changed everything. A uniformed deputy stood with both Mercer brothers. Harold Collins. The 3 men appeared to be talking privately nearly an hour before Emily disappeared. None of those meetings appeared anywhere in the original investigation. Rachel enlarged the final photograph. Its quality remained poor. Still, one detail became visible. Harold wasn't interviewing them. He was shaking Samuel Mercer's hand, not as an investigator, as someone who already knew him. Walter immediately searched personnel files again. Hidden deep inside old payroll documents he found it. Years before becoming deputy sheriff, Harold Collins worked 6 summers as a security supervisor at Mercer Construction. The connection had never been disclosed. Not once. Harold personally investigated people with whom he had a long professional relationship, a serious conflict of interest. Ignored completely. That evening, another cassette tape from the hidden lunchbox finished restoration. Unlike the previous recordings, this one began inside a moving vehicle. Road noise. Wind. The sound of tires crossing gravel. Daniel spoke first. "We shouldn't be doing this." A deeper voice answered. "Samuel, you've already gone too far." Daniel sounded nervous. "She's just a kid." Several seconds passed. Then Samuel replied coldly, "She knows about the invoices." Walter frowned. "Invoices?" Rachel replayed the sentence. Again. Same words. Invoices. Not drugs. Not kidnapping. Financial records. Emily hadn't uncovered a random crime. She had learned something connected to Mercer Construction. Financial investigators immediately reopened decades-old county contracts. Mercer Construction received several road maintenance projects during the early 1980s. Most documents had survived. One contract stood out. Blackridge Quarry Restoration Project. Awarded in August 1981. Canceled 2 months later. Millions of dollars in today's value had disappeared into incomplete work. Several invoices carried forged inspection signatures. One inspector's name appeared repeatedly. Harold Collins. Walter stared at the papers. Harold wasn't simply investigating Emily's disappearance. He had personal exposure if financial fraud came to light. If Emily somehow discovered the scheme, everyone involved suddenly had a motive to silence her. Hannah Carter remembered something investigators had never asked. Emily worked part-time after school at the county clerk's office, mostly filing invoices, permit applications, road contracts. Walter looked toward Hannah. Did she ever mention construction records? Hannah thought carefully, then nodded. She said some papers didn't match. What papers? I don't know. She kept saying somebody was stealing from the county. Walter felt another missing piece slide into place. Emily wasn't investigating people. She accidentally uncovered corruption. The Harvest Festival meeting wasn't random. Someone arranged it after realizing what she knew. Just before dawn, the DNA laboratory completed analysis of trace skin cells recovered from the brass key. The results identified 2 contributors, Daniel Mercer and someone completely unexpected. Walter read the report twice before speaking. The second profile belonged to Sheriff Robert Gaines, the elected sheriff of Blackridge in 1981. Harold Collins, direct supervisor, the man who publicly led every press conference, the man who assured the Carter family that investigators had followed every possible lead, the man who signed the final order closing the case. Walter slowly lowered the report onto the table. The conspiracy had just grown much larger than 2 brothers. It had reached the very top of the sheriff's department. Before anyone could process the discovery, Rachel rushed into the room carrying another evidence bag. Her face had turned pale. We searched inside the bicycle frame. Walter looked up. There was something hidden. What was it? Rachel carefully placed a tiny roll of waterproof plastic on the table. Inside, folded dozens of times, was a handwritten list. Walter unfolded it carefully. Across the top, in unmistakable teenage handwriting, were 5 words. People who know the truth. No one spoke as Walter carefully unfolded the fragile sheet. The paper had yellowed with age. Its edges crumbled beneath the slightest pressure. Forensic specialists immediately placed it beneath protective glass before anyone attempted to read it completely. Across the top, written in blue ink, Emily Carter had carefully printed 5 words. People who know the truth. Beneath the title appeared 6 names. Walter recognized every one. Samuel Mercer, Daniel Mercer, Deputy Harold Collins, Sheriff Robert Gaines, County Commissioner Lewis Harmon. The 6th name stopped him cold. Judge Thomas Caldwell. The room fell silent. Until that moment, every piece of evidence pointed toward local corruption inside law enforcement and Mercer Construction. Now the county's most respected judge appeared on Emily's own handwritten list. Walter read the names again. Emily hadn't written people I suspect. She hadn't written people I heard about. She wrote people who know the truth. Somehow, 16-year-old Emily Carter believed all 6 individuals shared knowledge of the same secret. Forensic handwriting experts authenticated the note within hours. The handwriting matched Emily's school assignments, letters, and diary entries preserved by her family. There was no doubt. Emily wrote the list herself. The question wasn't whether it was genuine. The question was why she hid it inside her bicycle. She expected someone to search her belongings, but not dismantle the bicycle frame. It was an intelligent hiding place, especially for a teenager. Someone had warned her to protect the information. Walter returned to Emily's school records. Teachers remembered her as unusually organized, curious, persistent. She loved journalism. During her junior year, she volunteered for the school newspaper. One assignment suddenly caught his attention. A feature article titled, "Where Does County Tax Money Go?" The article had never been published. Walter requested the original manuscript from the high school archives. After several hours of searching, staff located only the editor's folder. Emily's draft was missing, removed. No explanation remained. The school's faculty advisor had died years earlier. Another dead end. Or so it seemed. Rachel entered Walter's office carrying a newly restored photograph from the second undeveloped film roll. Unlike the festival pictures, this image showed the interior of a government building. Rows of filing cabinets lined the walls. Emily stood beside one open drawer, holding several folders. Walter immediately recognized the room. The county clerk's records office. Behind Emily stood another person, only partially visible. Just one sleeve, one hand. The cuff displayed an official county commissioner's seal. Lewis Harmon, the same commissioner whose name appeared on Emily's hidden list. Financial investigators expanded their audit. Road contracts from 1978 through 1982 revealed a pattern impossible to dismiss. Inspection reports contained identical signatures despite being filed months apart. Several invoices approved by Commissioner Harmon lacked supporting documentation. Judge Caldwell had signed emergency payment authorizations. Sheriff Gaines approved security reports for equipment deliveries that never occurred. Mercer Construction received nearly every major contract. Millions of public dollars had quietly disappeared over 4 years. Walter slowly leaned back in his chair. Emily hadn't uncovered a single crime. She had stumbled onto an organized network of corruption. The restored cassette tapes continued revealing fragments of the past. Tape number 5 began inside what sounded like a garage. Tools clattered in the background. A vehicle engine idled nearby. Daniel spoke quietly. "We have to tell somebody." Samuel answered immediately. "No, this has gone too far." Daniel insisted. Emily already copied the papers. Silence. Then another voice entered the recording. "Sheriff Gaines." Walter recognized him despite the distortion. "Then find out where she put them." Walter froze. Rachel replayed the sentence. Again. Same words. Not destroy the papers. Not arrest her. Simply find out where she hid them. The recording suggested Emily possessed copies of financial records before she disappeared. Yet investigators never recovered them. Had they survived somewhere? Walter searched the Carter family home once more. The attic remained untouched since Emily's parents passed away. Old school books, childhood toys, boxes of holiday decorations. Nothing unusual, until Hannah discovered a loose floorboard beneath Emily's former bedroom closet. Inside rested an empty metal cookie tin. No papers, no photographs, just dust. Something had once been hidden there. Walter looked toward Hannah. "Did anyone search this room after Emily disappeared?" She nodded. "The sheriff's department." "Who?" "Harold Collins." Walter said nothing. Meanwhile, divers resumed searching the flooded quarry using higher-resolution sonar. A large rectangular object appeared buried beneath nearly 12 feet of sediment. Excavation began carefully. Hours later, cranes lifted an old steel filing cabinet from the mud. Its drawers had rusted shut. Inside, nearly everything had dissolved into pulp. One drawer remained sealed by layers of compacted clay. Forensic conservators opened it in the laboratory. Several waterproof document sleeves had survived. County invoices, inspection reports, construction permits. Every document carried original signatures. Many directly contradicted records stored at the courthouse. Walter compared them side by side. Amounts had been altered. Completion dates changed. Entire pages replaced. Someone had systematically rewritten county history. The surviving conspirators were all dead. Sheriff Gaines, Commissioner Harmon, Judge Caldwell, Samuel Mercer, Daniel Mercer, Harold Collins. Each had passed away years before the hidden evidence surfaced. No criminal prosecution remained possible, but official truth still mattered. The Carter family deserved answers. Blackridge deserved to know why one teenager vanished after discovering corruption. Late that evening, forensic analysts finished enhancing the final damage page inside Emily's notebook. Only fragments remained readable. Most sentences had dissolved beneath water damage. One paragraph survived. "If something happens to me..." Walter leaned forward. The next line emerged slowly. "Don't believe the sheriff." Another pause while technicians adjusted the image. "Mr. Caldwell already knows." The final sentence took nearly an hour to reconstruct. When it finally appeared, nobody inside the laboratory spoke. "The retired sheriff will understand." Walter stared at the screen. His heart pounded. Emily wrote those words in September 1981. At that time, Walter Hayes wasn't retired. He was a 29-year-old deputy assigned to the investigation. Emily couldn't possibly have been referring to him as a retired sheriff. Unless she meant someone else. Rachel looked at Walter. There was another retired sheriff living here then. Walter nodded slowly. One name surfaced from memories, buried for decades. Sheriff Elias Boone. The man Robert Gaines defeated in the 1980 election. A respected lawman who quietly left office only months before Emily disappeared. Boone died in 1994. Everyone believed he had nothing to do with the case. Now Emily's own words suggested otherwise. Perhaps she hadn't been planning to expose the conspiracy through reporters. Perhaps she had been trying to reach the only lawman she still trusted. Walter immediately requested Boone's archived personal papers from the State Historical Collection. As he gathered his coat to leave, Rachel's phone rang. She listened for several seconds before looking toward Walter. The archive staff found something. What? A sealed package, labeled in Sheriff Boone's handwriting. Walter felt the room grow still. Rachel swallowed once before continuing. The label reads, "Open only if they never find Emily." Walter left for the Kentucky State Archives before daylight. The package had remained sealed for more than 3 decades. After Sheriff Elias Boone died in 1994, his family donated thousands of pages of correspondence, journals, and official papers to the State Historical Collection. Archivists cataloged everything carefully. The small brown envelope had never attracted attention because it wasn't listed as evidence. It was simply filed among Boone's personal effects. No one had ever opened it. Not until now. The envelope bore Boone's unmistakable handwriting. Open only if they never find Emily. Walter stared at the faded ink. Sheriff Boone retired nearly a year before Emily disappeared. Why would he expect she might never be found? Had he known she was in danger? Or had someone contacted him after she vanished? The archivist photographed the seal before carefully breaking it. Inside rested 3 items: a handwritten letter, a cassette tape, and a folded county map covered with pencil markings. Walter unfolded the letter first. It was dated September 24th, 1981. Only 6 days after Emily disappeared, Boone began writing in short, direct sentences. If this reaches honest investigators, understand that I no longer trust the sheriff's office. Walter immediately looked toward Rachel. The wording matched Emily's own notebook. Deputy Collins visited me 3 nights ago. He looked terrified. He told me certain people wanted the case buried before it truly began. Walter continued reading. He refused to give names. He said I would understand soon enough. Walter lowered the page. Harold Collins had secretly approached Boone. Not the state police, not federal investigators. The retired sheriff. He had tried to tell someone. The next paragraph grew even more unsettling. The girl left something with me. Rachel froze. Walter slowly reread the sentence. Emily had met Sheriff Boone before she disappeared. Nobody had ever mentioned that meeting. The letter continued. She believed county money was being stolen. She carried copies of documents. I told her to stay quiet until I verified everything. Walter felt a knot tighten in his stomach. Emily had done exactly what a frightened teenager should have done. She trusted an experienced lawman. She sought advice. Then she vanished before Boone could act. Boone explained why he sealed the package instead of reporting everything immediately. The day after Emily disappeared, someone broke into my house. Nothing valuable was taken. Only the envelope she left behind. Walter closed his eyes. The documents Emily copied had been stolen. That explained the empty cookie tin beneath her bedroom floor. Someone searched every possible hiding place. Someone eventually found Boone's copy as well. The conspiracy had moved faster than either Emily or Boone anticipated. Only one sentence remained at the bottom of the page. I managed to keep one thing they overlooked. Walter immediately reached for the cassette. The label simply read, "Meeting, September 16th. 2 days before Emily disappeared." Audio technicians transferred the aging recording into digital format. Static dominated the opening seconds. Then chairs scraping across a wooden floor. Several people talking quietly. A clock ticking somewhere nearby. Rachel increased the volume. Emily spoke first. "I copied everything." Boone answered calmly. "Did anyone see you?" "I don't think so." Another pause. Then Boone asked the question that changed the entire investigation. "Who signed the contracts?" Emily answered without hesitation. "Lewis Harmon, Judge Caldwell, Sheriff Gaines, and the Mercer brothers." Walter looked toward Rachel. Every name matched Emily's hidden list. The tape continued. Boone asked gently, "Why bring this to me?" Emily hesitated before answering. "Because nobody else will believe me." Walter felt a wave of sadness. A 16-year-old girl had correctly identified the only person she thought she could trust. And even that hadn't been enough. The recording continued for nearly 20 minutes. Emily calmly explained everything she discovered while filing county invoices. Duplicate payments, forged inspection signatures, road projects billed but never completed. She never accused anyone of murder. She simply believed public money had been stolen. Then Boone offered advice. "Don't meet anyone alone." Walter stopped the playback. Silence filled the room. Emily had promised Boone she wouldn't. Yet 48 hours later, she climbed into Daniel Mercer's truck. Something must have changed. Something convinced her to break her promise. Rachel searched the final minutes of the recording. A faint sound appeared after the conversation ended. Footsteps, a door opening, then another voice, almost too quiet to hear. Technicians filtered away the background noise. The voice became clearer. Male. Older. Walter's face hardened. Sheriff Robert Gaines. He wasn't speaking with Boone. He was outside, somewhere beyond the office window. Listening. The tape captured only 4 words. She knows too much. Nobody inside the laboratory spoke. Sheriff Gaines had apparently followed Emily to Boone's office. He knew exactly who she trusted. The folded county map revealed another surprise. Boone had circled 7 locations. Walter recognized 6 immediately. The courthouse, the sheriff's office, Mercer Construction, the abandoned warehouse, the quarry, Emily's home. The 7th circle puzzled everyone. An abandoned railroad tunnel outside Blackridge. The letter contained only 1 sentence about it. Harold wanted to meet there. Walter remembered the tunnel. Coal trains once passed through it until the early 1960s. After the tracks closed, the entrance collapsed. Teenagers occasionally explored the area despite repeated warnings. Investigators never connected it to Emily's disappearance. No official report even mentioned it. Search teams arrived before sunset. The tunnel entrance remained partially blocked by fallen rock. Engineers cleared a narrow path. Inside, damp air echoed through the darkness. Old wooden railroad ties still covered the ground. Nothing appeared disturbed, until Walter noticed fresh mortar near one section of the tunnel wall. Not recent, but much newer than the surrounding stone. Ground-penetrating radar revealed a hollow space behind it. Construction crews carefully removed the bricks. A narrow cavity emerged. Inside rested a rusted metal ammunition box. Dry, protected, untouched. Walter carefully lifted it into the light. Across the lid someone had scratched 2 initials. H.C. Harold Collins. The box opened easily. Inside lay dozens of handwritten pages. Notebooks, personal journals, copies of county payment records, and 1 small envelope marked, "If I'm dead." Walter opened it first. Harold's handwriting shook noticeably. "I helped them hide evidence. I told myself it would protect my family. Instead, it destroyed everything." Walter continued reading. Emily wasn't supposed to die. She discovered the fraud by accident. Daniel wanted to warn her. Samuel wanted the documents. Gaines wanted the scandal buried. The confession stopped abruptly. Several pages had been torn away. Walter searched the box again. The missing pages were gone. Only the final sheet remained. Across the bottom, Harold had written one last sentence. "The truth is buried where the water meets the stone." Walter slowly folded the confession. He immediately looked toward Rachel. "The quarry." She nodded. "The eastern wall." Exactly where sonar crews had found the submerged filing cabinet. But Harold wasn't describing paperwork. He was describing something else. Something still hidden. As search teams prepared to return to the flooded quarry the following morning, Walter's phone rang. It was the forensic laboratory. Rachel answered first. Her expression changed instantly. She looked directly at Walter. The fingerprint from Boone's cassette tape just came back. Walter stood. "Whose is it?" Rachel swallowed. "It isn't Boone's. It isn't Emily's." She turned the report toward him. Walter felt the blood drain from his face. The print belonged to Walter Hayes himself. The laboratory became completely silent. Walter stared at the report without blinking. His own fingerprint, recovered from Sheriff Boone's cassette tape. Impossible. He hadn't touched the evidence since it was removed from the sealed envelope only hours earlier. The forensic team had followed strict chain of custody procedures. No contamination had been reported. Rachel quietly slid the comparison images closer. Every ridge matched. Right thumb. Walter slowly sat down. "I've never seen that tape before." No one questioned his honesty. The evidence simply refused to make sense. Rachel broke the silence. "When did you first meet Sheriff Boone?" Walter looked past the report, as though searching through 40 years of memories. "I honestly don't remember." Then, suddenly, he did. September 1981. Walter had been a rookie deputy only 3 months into the job. Young, eager, trying desperately to prove himself. He remembered stopping by Boone's farmhouse one evening after work. Not officially, just to ask for career advice. Boone had invited him inside. They talked for nearly an hour about investigations, integrity, and the responsibility that came with wearing a badge. Walter frowned. Something else happened that night. Boone handed him a cassette recorder. "Listen to this," Boone had said. Walter remembered pressing the play button. Only for a few seconds, before Boone suddenly snatched the recorder back. "I shouldn't have shown you that." The memory ended there. Walter had completely forgotten it. For 43 years, his fingerprint wasn't evidence of guilt. It was evidence that Boone had trusted him, if only briefly. Rachel compared the timeline. Walter visited Boone on September 25, 1981. One day after Boone wrote the letter. One day after Boone recorded his concerns. The fingerprint finally made sense. Boone had almost revealed everything. Then changed his mind. Walter quietly closed his eyes. If he trusted me, just 5 more minutes. Rachel finished the thought. That this case might have ended in 1981. Attention returned to Harold Collins' unfinished confession. The truth is buried where the water meets the stone. The phrase pointed directly toward the flooded eastern quarry wall. Search crews returned before sunrise. This time they focused on the vertical limestone face rather than the quarry floor. Divers worked slowly beneath the surface. Sonar revealed several unnatural voids inside the rock. One cavity appeared almost perfectly rectangular. Engineers drilled a small inspection hole. A fiber optic camera slipped inside. Walter watched the monitor carefully. At first only darkness. Then, a wooden crate, still intact, protected inside the sealed cavity. Concrete had been poured over the opening decades earlier. Someone wanted whatever lay inside to disappear forever. Removing the crate required nearly 6 hours. The concrete plug weighed almost a ton. Heavy machinery slowly lifted it away. Divers secured the crate with lifting straps. When it finally emerged from the water, everyone gathered around. The wood had swollen with moisture but remained largely intact. Rachel carefully pried open the rusted lid. Inside rested dozens of waterproof document tubes, boxes of photographic negatives, several accounting ledgers, and one revolver wrapped inside an oilcloth. Walter immediately recognized the weapon. A Colt Python. Department issue. Registered to Sheriff Robert Gaines. Official records claimed it had been stolen during a burglary in 1983. Apparently, it had never left the quarry. The accounting ledgers proved devastating. Every fraudulent county payment Emily described appeared in meticulous detail. Dates, amounts, contract numbers, kickback percentages. Each page listed initials beside the payments. SM, DM, LH, RG, TC. Harold Collins' initials appeared only twice, both beside handwritten notes reading, "Witness present." Walter slowly turned another page. Near the back lay a folded receipt, dated September 18, 1981. The day Emily disappeared. The receipt documented a cash withdrawal of $25,000. Exactly the amount later deposited into Harold Collins' bank account. Bribery. Confirmed. The revolver drew immediate forensic attention. Although submerged for decades, modern restoration techniques recovered microscopic traces from the cylinder. One spent cartridge remained inside. 5 unfired rounds. The firing pin impressions matched no known homicide. Emily had never been shot. So why hide the weapon? Rachel found the answer while cleaning the grip. A tiny smear of dried blood survived beneath the wooden handle. DNA extraction began immediately. Meanwhile, investigators examined the recovered negatives. Many depicted road construction sites. Others photographed county documents. Several clearly showed incomplete public projects billed as fully finished. Emily hadn't taken those pictures. Someone else had documented the corruption long before she discovered it. One envelope carried Harold Collins' handwriting. Inside rested 3 photographs, never shown to investigators. Walter studied the first. Sheriff Gaines, Commissioner Harmon, Judge Caldwell, standing together beside a Mercer construction truck. The second, Daniel Mercer arguing with Samuel outside the abandoned warehouse. The third, Emily Carter, alive, walking away from the warehouse. Alone. Walter's pulse quickened. The timestamp read 9:48 p.m. Official investigators always believed Emily disappeared shortly after arriving there. This photograph proved she left the warehouse alive. Everything changed. If Emily walked away, where did she go? The final minutes of the investigation had been reconstructed incorrectly for 43 years. Rachel enlarged the background. Behind Emily, almost hidden beneath darkness, appeared another vehicle. A county sheriff's cruiser. Walter looked closer. Only part of the unit number remained visible. Enough. Vehicle 12, assigned exclusively to Sheriff Robert Gaines. Walter looked toward Rachel. Gaines picked her up. She nodded slowly. The warehouse wasn't the end. It was only the beginning. Harold's confession suddenly carried deeper meaning. Daniel wanted to warn her. Samuel wanted the documents. Gaines wanted the scandal buried. Perhaps Daniel wasn't Emily's killer. Perhaps he tried to help. The cassette recordings supported that theory. Daniel repeatedly sounded frightened, reluctant, conflicted. Samuel and Gaines had driven events forward. Daniel simply became trapped inside them. Late that afternoon, the DNA laboratory completed testing on the blood recovered from Sheriff Gaines' revolver. Rachel entered Walter's office carrying the report. Her face revealed nothing. Walter read the result himself. The blood belonged neither to Emily nor to Gaines. It belonged to Daniel Mercer. Walter looked up sharply. Daniel had bled onto the sheriff's weapon. Yet no medical records described injuries after Emily disappeared. No witness remembered seeing him hurt. Another hidden struggle had occurred, one never documented, one erased from history. As investigators reorganized the timeline, one question remained unanswered. Why had Gaines hidden financial records, photographs, and his own revolver inside a sealed quarry chamber? The answer arrived unexpectedly. A forensic accountant examining the ledgers noticed several page numbers missing. Not damaged, carefully removed. Exactly 7 consecutive pages. Those pages likely recorded the largest illegal payments. Someone had extracted them before sealing the crate. Walter searched every recovered document again. Nothing. The missing pages had vanished. Then Rachel made one final discovery inside the false bottom of the wooden crate. A tiny brass capsule, barely larger than a fountain pen. She unscrewed the cap. Inside was a tightly rolled strip of photographic microfilm. Walter stared at it. Microfilm. In 1981, that was how banks and government offices archived their most sensitive records. If the missing ledger pages had been photographed, they might still exist. Rachel carefully held the tiny roll against the light. Rows of miniature document images became visible. She smiled for the first time in days. I think Emily made a backup. Before anyone could celebrate, an FBI document specialist studying the microfilm looked up from the viewer. His expression had gone pale. These aren't just county contracts. Walter frowned. What are they? The specialist slowly turned the screen toward everyone in the room. The first enlarged page displayed dozens of names. Some belonged to Blackridge officials. Others belonged to people far outside Kentucky. Across the top of the document, typed in bold letters, were 6 chilling words. Confidential federal investigation, do not copy. The room fell into stunned silence. No one reached for the microfilm. No one spoke. The words on the screen seemed impossible. Confidential federal investigation, do not copy. Walter looked toward the FBI document specialist. You've seen this format before. The specialist nodded slowly. Late 1970s, early 1980s. Internal investigative files. Walter frowned. Why would county officials have federal documents? No idea. But they never should have. The laboratory carefully scanned the entire strip of microfilm. Frame after frame appeared on the monitor. Financial records, bank transfers, construction contracts, vehicle registrations, telephone logs. Several pages carried Department of Justice formatting. Others originated from the Internal Revenue Service. Some were heavily redacted. One detail connected every document. The Mercer Construction Company. Walter leaned closer. The company wasn't simply overbilling road projects. It appeared to be laundering money through dozens of fake infrastructure contracts. The scheme stretched far beyond Blackridge. Neighboring counties appeared throughout the files. Several names belonged to businessmen already deceased. Others belonged to public officials who had quietly resigned during the early 1980s. The corruption Emily accidentally uncovered was far larger than anyone imagined. Rachel paused the scanner on one particular frame. A typed memorandum, dated September 10, 1981, 8 days before Emily disappeared. Subject: potential witness, juvenile female. Walter immediately felt his pulse quicken. The memo continued. Information suggests an unidentified 16-year-old county employee may have accessed duplicate payment records. Identity currently unknown. Someone already knew a teenage witness existed. Before Emily vanished. Before the meeting with Daniel. Before the Harvest Festival. Walter looked toward Rachel. They were already looking for her. Rachel nodded. Long before she realized it. The next document explained even more. An internal investigative summary described an anonymous tip received by federal authorities weeks earlier. The source claimed Mercer Construction inflated road contracts with assistance from local officials. The FBI opened a preliminary financial inquiry. The investigation never progressed. One handwritten note in the margin explained why. Local cooperation unavailable. Walter understood immediately. The local sheriff's office had been compromised from the beginning. Every request for assistance filtered through Sheriff Robert Gaines, the very man involved in the fraud. Investigators searched federal archives for the missing case. Most records had been destroyed under routine retention policies. One retired FBI agent remained alive. Frank Donnelly, 87 years old, living quietly in northern Ohio. Walter drove there 2 days later. Frank remembered Blackridge immediately. "I've been waiting a long time for someone to ask." Walter leaned forward. "You investigated Mercer Construction?" Frank nodded. "Started to. What happened?" "We lost our witness." Walter frowned. "What witness?" Frank looked directly into Walter's eyes. "The girl. Emily." Federal investigators had known about her. Not by name. Only as a possible witness. Frank continued. "We plan to meet her." "When?" "September 19th. The morning after she disappeared." Walter remained silent. Emily never made the meeting. Frank opened an old storage box beneath his desk. Inside rested faded notebooks from his career. One entry carried the heading, Blackridge. He slowly turned the pages. "I wrote everything down." Walter watched carefully. Frank stopped at September 17th. "There." A handwritten note. "Retired Sheriff Boone requests discreet contact." Walter's heartbeat quickened. Boone had reached out to the FBI. Quietly. Without informing Sheriff Gaines. Frank continued reading. "We arranged to drive down the following week. But before we arrived," he didn't finish the sentence. He didn't need to. Emily disappeared. The investigation collapsed. Federal attention shifted elsewhere. The corruption survived. Frank handed Walter one final document. A copy of an unsigned letter received shortly after Emily vanished. No return address. No fingerprints. The author claimed Emily had hidden copies of financial records somewhere investigators would never think to look. Walter immediately thought about the bicycle frame, the cookie tin, the quarry, Sheriff Boone. Emily had created multiple hiding places. She expected someone to come after the documents. She simply underestimated how quickly. Back in Kentucky, forensic analysts finished restoring the final cassette tape recovered from the red lunchbox. The recording quality remained poor. Most of the first half captured only vehicle noise. Then voices emerged. Walter immediately recognized Daniel. "They're following us." Emily answered quietly. "I know." Walter exchanged a quick glance with Rachel. Emily already knew someone was watching. The recording continued. Daniel sounded desperate. "You should leave town." Emily laughed softly. "I didn't do anything wrong." "No." Daniel replied. "But they did." Silence followed. Long. Heavy. Then Daniel whispered the sentence that changed everyone's opinion of him. "I tried to stop Samuel." Walter replayed it twice. Daniel wasn't threatening Emily. He was warning her. The final 60 seconds of a tape became chaotic. A vehicle approached rapidly. Brakes screeched. Doors slammed. Several people shouted over each other. Emily yelled one word. "Run!" Then a violent impact echoed across the recording. Someone fell. Metal struck concrete. Daniel screamed. The tape abruptly stopped. No further audio existed. Rachel synchronized the cassette timeline with every recovered photograph. The result created an entirely new sequence. Emily met Daniel voluntarily. Daniel warned her. They drove toward the warehouse, hoping to recover or hide documents. Samuel arrived. Shortly afterwards, Sheriff Gaines appeared. Emily escaped. Daniel attempted to protect her. Something happened near Gaines' patrol car. After that, history vanished into silence. Forensic specialists returned to the revolver recovered from the quarry. High-resolution microscopy revealed damage beneath the grip panels. Someone had hidden a tiny object inside the handle. Rachel carefully removed the wooden grips. A folded square of paper emerged. Walter unfolded it slowly. Only one sentence appeared, written in Sheriff Gaines' handwriting. "Nobody can know where she is." The wording struck everyone immediately. Not where her body was, where she was. Present tense. At least when Gaines wrote the note. Walter looked toward Rachel. What if? She finished the thought. What if Emily didn't die that night? The possibility hung in the room like thunder. For 43 years, investigators assumed Emily Carter became a homicide victim. Yet not a single piece of recovered evidence conclusively proved her death. No body, no murder weapon tied to her, no blood large enough to indicate fatal injuries, only disappearance. Could the entire investigation have followed the wrong assumption? Before anyone could answer, the laboratory phone rang. Rachel listened quietly. Her expression changed instantly. She covered the receiver. The DNA lab. Walter stood. What now? They matched an unidentified female profile. From where? Rachel slowly lowered her hand. The blood recovered from the sheriff's cruiser. Walter waited. Rachel swallowed. It isn't Emily Carter. Silence. Then whose is it? The laboratory technician answered through the speaker. We believe that it's her mother's.